The year is 2009. America was on the upswing out of the financial crisis. Barack Obama was just inaugurated as president, and Michael Jackson had just kicked the bucket. Ah, the memories. But that's not why you're here. You're here to hear about a game that I don't think is just great. I actually think it's one of the best video game sequels of all time. Welcome to Assassin's Creed 2. Now, when you think of the Italian Renaissance, you probably think of two things: paintings of boobs and shirts that have ruffles and flowy sleeves. Luckily, Assassin's Creed 2 has plenty of both. Renaissance Italy has such a unique style that makes you feel like you're walking around in an art history book, running around tiled rooftops while you hear citizens say things in Italian accents. It's an experience that is unique to this game alone. It's interesting that no other game has even attempted this setting, which in some ways is smart, because if you mess it up, then it's like you're going to take an Italian vacation, but then your parents end up taking you to Jersey. Something that surprised me when replaying this is that Ubisoft really managed to make all the cities feel distinct. Florence feels like a classical locale that you would see in a documentary. Tuscany nails the feel of a countryside with monasteries and fields of growing grapes. Romagna Forlì feels like an older historic region with a medieval background. Venice is definitely a city built on the water, with a chaotic layout of buildings all connected together. All these locales are brought together by a great soundtrack that consists of string instruments and church choir-like chants that help make an unforgettable open world to exist in. Each map has a small number of side activities to do, such as beat-em-up events where you're getting revenge against adulterous husbands for their wives, races against fleet-footed individuals, and assassination events for the Medici family. The real standouts, however, are the assassinations, as they stress your assassination abilities, such as killing 10 armored brutes in a minute, or killing a target without being seen. They're fun little events that you can grind out if you're enjoying the gameplay and looking to make a little extra dough. But they aren't necessary by any means, and we aren't even talking about the feathers, because who gives a feathery fuck about them? Oh, and I can't forget to mention the fantastic assassin tombs that all feel like little themed dungeons where you solve traversal puzzles. They are top tier side activities by really highlighting the fun of the climbing mechanics and getting one step closer to unlocking Altair's armor. I replayed the Ezio collection on the Xbox Series X, which runs at 60 frames per second with HDR, so the game does look better than you would expect, but I couldn't get past the fact that many of the non-important character models look like skinwalkers wanting to skitter up a wall the moment you stop looking at them. I mean, specifically Petruchio. Look at those little bugged out eyes. It makes me feel a little relieved whenever he goes for his little recreational swing later, you know what I mean? It can also almost seem like you're running around a world of decorative boxes because the textures on walls can fall so flat at times. I will say, the level design of the world is just as good, maybe even a little bit better than the original. The parkour mechanics also feel a little more refined than the first, which I played not that long ago. I honestly am surprised by how much control I feel like I have when I'm climbing up walls and jumping between buildings. Modern day Assassin's Creed games have taken the Breath of the Wild approach where you can just climb up whatever you want. I realize that with these older games, climbing is basically a puzzle. You have to pay attention to where you are jumping and grabbing and coming up with a plan on the fly for how you're making your way up. You have the precise nature of moving up, down, and side to side, or a back eject. And the rigidity of your movements feels responsive, especially once you realize that you can change your direction and momentum on a dime like a PCP-fueled Cirque du Soleil acrobat. This can be done to change direction if you spot a chest or a feather out of the corner of your eye, if you want to chase the feathers, or while trying to evade pursuing enemies. The combat has the same bones as Assassin's Creed 1. It's built on a simple attacking and countering with the ability to grab your opponent if you're feeling like your grabby little creepy uncle. I do think this game pushes back a little harder than the original. You can't always just wait to counter and get an insta-kill. Lots of enemies in the latter half of the game only lose health on a counter. Many of them can also block and counter your attacks, which prevents you from just mashing the attack button to win. The game does add some new aspects to your arsenal, such as the dual hidden blades, which give you the ability to take out 2 enemies at once with an assassination. You also have the very unique wrist pistol, which is such a unique tool to add to a game with this setting. They also added some light RPG elements this time around. Nothing like the over-the-top fantasy elements in future titles, looking at you, Odyssey and Valhalla. You get different armor types that upgrade your health and different weapons to unlock as you progress through the story. They added blunt weapons this time, such as maces and warhammers, and it lets you feel like an absolute barbarian badass with those gruesome kill animations. Look at this thing go. While this combat is simple, I can't lie, it's satisfying to pick apart these guards dressed like a hooded musketeer. I know the current AC games rely on a hitbox style of combat, but there is a cinematic quality to the animations here that make you feel like an expert swordsman or assassin. At the end of the day, that's one of the best things you can ask when it comes to a game about an assassin is to, well, feel like a badass assassin. The story is where I really get my peaches tickled in an Assassin's Creed game. The lore of two groups fighting for centuries in a never-ending war. It's kind of lost on us today because Assassin's Creed is such a long-running franchise. But having a story set hundreds of years after the first, with the same organizations, really is an interesting look at how ideas and groups live way beyond any individual. One of the best things about the story is how it takes place over several decades of Ezio's life. I mean, you're hopping through literal decades quicker than a hippie on heroin in the 60s. You start out as a very brash young man, straight out of a Shakespearean story, fist fighting in the streets for the honor of your family's name. You are then presented to what might be the greatest intro of all time with Ezio and his brother on top of the tower. The beginning of the story is a slow burn. You live a day in Ezio's life, helping his mother, his brother, and oh my god, what is that? Oh, that's just you, Patricio. I'll always enjoy when a game takes its time to get into a narrative. It slowly coaxes you into the world and allows you to immerse yourself into the story. By the time the inciting incidents happen, you are already so far on the Team Ezio bus that you want to sink your blade into the Templar's necks just as much as our protagonist. You then quickly have to flee Florence to our favorite uncle's villa.
Don't you recognize me? It's me, Mario!
Where you spend 2 years. 2 years training. Now, this is a problem I have with this game. The passage of time happens so quickly in the matter of a couple of tutorial combat sections that you don't feel the time as it passes. Unless you look at the dates yourself, you probably think only a few weeks to maybe a couple of months have passed. After our playable 80s montage of a training session, we go to kill our first target, which is the little shit-stained Pinocchio we were throwing down with at the beginning on the bridge. This mission pretty much starts the formula for how the narrative plays out for the rest of the game. You go from target to target, finding ways to get to them and assassinate them, with a couple of different high points in terms of assassination prep. Most of these high points occur specifically once you get to Venice. Getting linked up with the Thieves Guild and coming up with plans to get into the Palazzo, using the flying machine to get to another target, and of course, using the Carnival to eliminate another. These great sequences all work as if you're setting up to pull off a heist, the real Italian job if you would, with less Mark Wahlberg, and I think I speak for all of us when we could do with a little less Mark Wahlberg. The story, however, isn't without its flaws. The biggest problems, in my opinion, come towards the final act of the story, when Ezio confronts Rodrigo Borgia in Venice. There's a weird moment in which all of these different leaders of factions come together to help you fight in this moment. You find out that they were all assassins and they've been guiding you across your journey. It very much feels like it gets pulled out of someone's ass last minute to reinforce that everything you've been doing has been preparing you for this. It was unnecessary because we as the player already know that this has been the case. Maybe in this scene you just have Uncle Mario show up to help you fight, and then afterwards at the initiation ceremony, you can have everybody else show up. This would feel a lot more natural considering not everyone in the Creed is an absolute warrior. Some like to rely more on the shadows and assist unseen. One of the biggest things that I think makes Assassin's Creed 2 special is the way that it incorporates the first civilization into its lore. At this point, it's a mystery as to who they are or why they're important to us. You get sent across a glyph-based scavenger hunt across the entire game if you want to find all the puzzle pieces to put them together. All these puzzles reveal to you is that pieces of Eden were being used by different conquerors such as Alexander the Great and Genghis Khan, and then you see how different titans of industry such as Henry Ford and Thomas Edison were using these pieces to gain influence. It's these little pieces of historical science fiction that made this truly special. Then after you find all the glyphs and solve the puzzles, you unlock an odd cutscene with a very naked and slightly glowing Adam and Eve parkouring around that continues to strike you with a sense of mystery. All this first civilization stuff culminates at the very end of the game where Juno's spouting exposition to you. She's staring directly at the player, speaking through Ezio's memory to Desmond. It's such a curveball of an ending that it leaves the player reeling and Desmond saying what everyone else is thinking.
What the fuck?
This whole playthrough made me yearn for a time when the first Civ aspects of Assassin's Creed were unexplored. The sense of wonder that these aspects left me with are a far cry from the way that current games handle them. I'll always take these weird glimpses into a distant yet advanced past rather than the over-the-top fantasy elements like running through Valhalla. Yes, I understand it's often contextualized through sci-fi technology, but I still don't love it. Assassin's Creed 2 is still a great game by many standards. There are definitely some old video game things that I don't think hold up great, like building textures and character models. And then there are some design choices like trying to follow a target with imprecise, non-stealthy movements. Then there are some weird story elements towards the latter half. However, when we look at the scales of pros and cons, the world, the combat, and the lore heavily outweigh the bad. I highly recommend replaying through this or picking it up if you haven't before. As always guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.